First question is really around how can we engage in advocacy work on sexual and reproductive rights with partners who are working in contexts where those rights are constrained. For example, can we contribute to advocacy around abortion in areas where abortion is illegal? How can we, based in Canada, offer support while also respecting the limits our partners need to abide by for their own safety and legal protection? So if I could ask you, and someone can jump in and comment on that complicated question.
When I heard the figure of 25 million abortions, I thought, wow, 600,000 of those are in the Philippines every year. The abortion is completely, absolutely illegal in the Philippines under all circumstances.
What it means when you're collaborating. When I'm collaborating with my peers, who I'm pointing to because they are right in front of me listening to me talk about this, I don't talk about, maybe necessarily in open spaces, about what the association thinks about legalizing abortion. But we do talk about the importance of teaching midwives the skill of post-abortion care. So there is conversations around unsafe abortion, but it's working within the context that we have. And then going from there and following the lead. You know, like following civil societies and following associations leads. I'm not there to impose, and in addition to that, I'm not even there to impose what I think should happen. That's irrelevant because I'm collaborating, I'm collaborating with my peers and it's their context. So that's just a little bit about what I think is the maybe more appropriate contextual.
Dovetailing on your last point, I think that that's a really important starting point. Certainly for us, I mean, we want to start off with that humility of saying, not only can we not say what's right in a particular context that we're not part of, but we have a lot to learn from our partners. And this was a huge process of organizational discovery for us. As an organization, in fact, that our partners in the Global South that we collectively participate in advocacy work with have a lot to teach us around, their conceptions of sexuality and their approaches to advocacy. So that's really the first recognition. And you had mentioned, Katrina, that we're 30 years post Morgentaler. Well, we're 30 years post the introduction globally of mifepristone as well. And when did we get access to mifepristone here? 2015, on the market, January 2017, with lots of restrictions, the original Health Canada decision, physicians only, all sorts of other restrictions. Not a thought, even when they revised the decision, sorry, I'm ranting now, but even when they revised the decision, there was still no talk there was nothing about midwives. It was suddenly just physicians and nurse practitioners. Yeah. And this is a real unfortunate thing that needs to change. Because if we're going to solve rural and remote access that you were talking about this morning, we need to ensure that task shifting is happening. We need to ensure that we are not just expanding the legal grounds and supporting that advocacy of midwives, so that 4 or 5, and so the rest of it is there are varying grounds of exception, and we need to read those more purposively, right, and read those more expansively. And the last thing I'll say, in addition to expanding these legal grounds, supporting the advocacy to change laws and policies, including around midwives' scope of practice, is the move towards demedicalization at the same time. Medical abortion self-use, I think, is an important development that we need to be considering more and scaling up further.
Yeah, if I can add one more thing, I just wanted to say that I know it's taken a while, but the dialogue around midwives and mifepristone is happening. It's now. No, I know. And I know, but you're right, it's sort of silly in a sense that we weren't part of that dialogue sooner, but again, it is who has the power and who is having those conversations, who is at the table, right? So it's really important that we're also asking those questions as well, so we're not just an afterthought, especially in the context of Canada and other places.
Yeah, I'm really glad, Sandeep, that you mentioned that we in Canada have some regulatory or legal restrictions to the provision of abortion as well, where midwives as fully competent practitioners who could certainly provide medical abortion with a little bit of training, manual vacuum aspiration, and we're restricted. But I can tell you that a few weeks ago there was a workshop offered in training to provide medical abortion, and there was some 100 and change people there, and 1/4 of them were midwives. So we're learning anyways.
The post-abortion care, and that is legal in the Philippines, and that is the way that LICAN and others have approached it, is to try and improve people's technical skills around that, and everybody, there's this myth that you're providing post-abortion care for some woman who's had a miscarriage, as though there are 600,000. Anyway, I think though that I'm really glad to hear that CAM is where it is on this issue, because I think there are lots of midwives associations, and when I spoke with LICAN about the Midwives Association in the Philippines, her appeal was, well, can you get CAM to come over and talk to the midwives here in the Philippines, because they're not anywhere near. I mean, they're stuck back on, we don't like contraception, much less taking a position in favor of abortion. So I think that interchange is exchange of views between midwives around the world is something else that that's really valuable and important.
That leads us into our second question, which is really about differing values, sex, sexuality, birth.